What's going on, everybody? This is Bobby G back again with another Saturday Shpiel. This one is a rare double portion this week. For those of you who don't know, double portion is sometimes during the reading cycle of the Torah and the half Torah. In the case of Messianics, the Brit Chadashah, which is the New Covenant. Sometimes we get a double reading, which means we get two instead of one. Now, Haftarah usually says the same as it's just one reading, but in the Brit Chadashah, there's usually two readings. In this case, we have four readings from the Brit Chadashah because I go both to Chosen People Ministries on the Messianic calendar for them, and I go to TorahPortions.org. Now, here are the readings for today. The readings today are Parashat Zariah, and the other one is Metzorah. And the readings come from the Torah is Leviticus chapter 12 verse 1 to chapter 15 verse 33, which covers both portions. The Haftarah reading is from 2 Kings chapter 7 verses 3 through 20. And Lord have mercy. We got four New Testament readings or New Covenant readings here. The first one is Matthew chapter 23 verse 16 to chapter 24, verse 2, as well as verses 30 and 31. And there's also Mark chapter 1, verses 35 through 45, Luke chapter 2, verses 22 through 35, and Luke chapter 7, verses 18 through 35. Now there's a lot of ground to cover. But I'm going to try and go through it in under 15 minutes, hopefully. With chapters 12 through 15, that's basically chapters 12 and 15 of Leviticus all the way through. Basically, we're talking about purity, ritual cleansing is what we're talking about in these three chapters. For a few things. First of all, as regards with leprosy to the body. Second of all, is regard to mold, as we would understand it today, what's called za'arat in Hebrew, which could be anything. Usually people consider za'arat to specifically be leprosy, but actually it applies to many things, which today could be what we know as Hansen's disease, which is actual leprosy, could be plaque psoriasis, could be just really dry skin, very sensitive skin, where you get very ashy. I'll just say it plainly. It could be one of those things. There's also the matter of for a woman in what's called her niddah, which otherwise is known as that time of the month, which is not very polite to say, but it is what it is. There's no getting around it. As uncomfortable as it is for me to say, if you can't tell. There's purity rituals for that. Also, when a woman has a child, and the purification rituals for those. And then there is also just for general what's considered bodily discharges and cleaning, and how many days you have to wash up before you can be considered ritually clean. Some cases it's overnight, some cases it's a week, some cases it's a month. And it depends. And it's the same thing depending on the how long the issue lasts. Now, in the case of 2 Kings, which is kind of interesting, you have four men who had Za'arat, what is translated by many translations as leprosy, who are living outside of Israel or Samaria at this time, and they find out that, the armies that were coming up against Israel have essentially fled because God put a mindset on them. And there had been a guard previously to this who was at the gate who heard from a prophet that, by the way, this time tomorrow, bread's going to be sold, grain's going to be sold, wine's going to be sold for such and such a price. And the guard was like, well, how is that? Even if God were to open up the, windows of heaven, how can this even be? And the prophet told him, this is going to happen, and you're going to see it, but guess what? You're not going to be able to partake. So there's that. In Matthew chapters 23 and 24, we're looking at the temple and what was going on, and we're seeing, and I would personally recommend, even though the reading from Chosen People Ministries is, one of them is Luke 23 verses 16 to chapter 12, or Matthew chapter 23 verse 16 to chapter 24 verse 2, and then verses 30 and 31. I would say read from chapter 23 verse 16 all the way to chapter 24 verse 31. The reason for that is because what we have here is really what's to come. You know, there's wars and rumors of wars and such, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will go cold, but he who endures to the end will be saved. And there's going to be all kinds of things going on, one of which includes Za'arat. Also, in the cases of the passages of Mark and Luke, you see a lot of people being healed, a lot of people being cleansed, and so on. But he also does a lot of woes in chapter 23 of Matthew, where he comes on the Pharisees and says, blind guides, hypocrites, because you're in a mindset of religiosity which has nothing to do with God or has nothing to do with Torah, and you're thinking that's going to get you somewhere. And I was meditating on this morning as I was reading these passages, and the thing that really struck me, or the thought that came to me, is that religiosity gets you nowhere with God. You know, you can go through the motions. I've been guilty of it, of just going through the motions and thinking that that's all right, when the reality is that's not all right. You know, when we see a spirit of religiosity, I think, in the churches and in dare I say, possibly some synagogues, and we think that it's okay, but the problem is that, you know, just like Saul did a foolish sacrifice, and Samuel ended up calling him out and saying, the Lord desires more obedience more than sacrifice, you know. And David, even in Psalm 51, said, you know, sacrifice you do not desire, or else I would give it, because the sacrifice that is acceptable to God is a broken and contrite heart, not ritual. And he calls out the Pharisees on this, because it's like, you appear as whitewashed tombs, but inwardly you're full of dead man's bones. And again, he says that, you know, you wash the outside of the cup when you should be washing the inside of the cup too, and you're supposed to start with that first, and then wash the outside. Again, he says that, you know, you say to yourselves, you build on the tombs of the prophets and say, hey, if we'd have lived at that time, we wouldn't have partaken in the killing of the prophets. It's like, so you openly, by saying that, openly admit that you are the descendants of those who killed and stoned the prophets who I sent to you. And I guess what I'm getting at with all of this and you know, rebuke, there's also a matter of healing. And I think the message, if I could sum it up in a phrase, is that it's time for all of us to clean house. It's time for all of us to clean house, because in the times that we're living in, I don't think that it's too far-fetched to say that the days are short and that time is ticking on the clock. Now, mind you, as a disclaimer, I do not know when Yeshua, Jesus, is coming back. I don't know that. Even Jesus himself said, when asked about when the time will come, he said, you know, but the day or the hour, no one knows. Neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but the Father only. So I don't know when that day is going to come, but I do know it is going to come at some point. So I would say the lesson to take from this is to search your life and to purify your soul of any religiosity, of any holier-than-thou attitude, of any know-it-all attitude. To clear yourself of that, to walk in humility before God, and to really understand that God is the one who runs the show at the end of the day. Some parts of that may be hard. I know for me it's been hard this past couple of weeks, but I really got a sense that God was telling me through the Holy Spirit that it was time to thin out my library and to pass on some of the books. Some I disposed of in a way that probably I should not have. But yet it had to be done. Just maybe not in the way that I planned it. Now there's more books that I've packed up that I have not gotten rid of, but they are eventually going to go away, and I probably will either give them to somebody or throw them out there for anybody who wants them. But the point is that I'm clearing my house. I'm cleaning house. It is the time of the year where the phrase spring cleaning really does come into mind. But I want people to focus on their souls in that sense. Clean house, make sure your soul is right before God. And to get right with Yeshua, Jesus. And I can't tell you what that's going to look like. I can't tell somebody what their relationship is going to look like. But what I do know is that the more I listen to God, the more I listen and read His Word, the more I get a sense of where He's directing me to go. And so I would advise others to do the same. This is Bobby G, aka Bobby Bookworm. This is my Saturday Shpiel. Hope y'all have a good, blessed morning, and hope y'all have a blessed rest of the week. Take care.